Alright, let's just do my weekly scan for epic YouTube video ideas I can steal. Wait a second. A review of the Fred movie?
Where'd you move here from? Dumbsville?
But I've already done 2 of those! Did he at least acknowledge it being a postmodern masterpiece?
Call me crazy, but I saw potential in it.
Don't tell me you actually enjoyed it.
Oh no, the movie's dog shit. Oh no, the movie's dog shit.
What the hell? Why wasn't I told about this? If I had known that, I wouldn't have lent my voice talents to this video. This is a nightmare. Dumbsville, why didn't you tell me?
I did. I told you before I made the video.
I don't even want to hear it, Dumbsville. You've gone too far this time. For those unaware, Fred is a character created by Lucas Cruikshank that took the world by storm. Well, YouTube by storm at least, all the way back in 2006. Through the process of acting like a spoiled child and pitch-shifting his voice to create this really squeaky tone.
Look, I can do it too. Where's my 3 million subscribers?
Anyways, executives were really trying hard to figure out how to tap into the YouTube market whatever way they could. And I guess they saw Fred as the perfect starting point. And with that, they had tried to turn the Fred name into a brand. He made special appearances on children's sitcoms at the time, such as Hannah Montana, and an entire iCarly episode that was dedicated to him, which was actually my first exposure to the guy. And beyond that, a feature-length film that was released in 2010, even being shown in UK theaters, which is how I saw it. The film was universally panned, of course, but surprisingly it did well enough in terms of ratings. But if you've seen my previous videos on the subject, you'd actually know that I enjoy this film quite a bit.
But why though, Mark?
But just why do I like Fred the movie so much? Well, out of fear of this turning into my 3rd video about why I like the Fred movie, I'll just briefly say that while I would never necessarily call the Fred movie good, I like it way more than I should, and it comes from the fact that nothing is taken seriously for a majority of it. For the first hour, it doesn't feel like any scene correlates or contributes to a larger narrative. Fred goes to a water park? Sure. A pet store? Why not? The simple gimmick of him trying to get to the girl of his dreams' house means they can really just plop him anywhere on his journey and see what comes out of that. It's the process of taking this insane character who in any other film would be in a mental asylum and just putting him in a regular suburban neighborhood that really appeals to me. It means we get such stellar scenes as Fred screaming over his mom about Judy moving.
Judy moved? Where to?
I don't know. They asked me to forward the mail.
Why didn't you tell me?
Or when he and the school jock argue about who is the better singing voice, it's just that right level of absurd for me.
I've been told since day 1 I have perfect pitch. I mean, I can reach all the notes.
Then of course this all builds up to the scene where he finally gets to Judy's house, where we get the reveal that Judy barely knows who he is and that Fred has basically formulated this one-sided relationship where he believes the most popular girl at school and him are a couple, and him simply going to her house will prove it. Of course, that's when the entire movie collapses and we get the completely shallow ending, where Fred becomes popular and suddenly Judy likes him now and he accepts her love instead of telling her to piss off for being so shallow. But up until then, the movie is basically perfect. I can't think of a single flaw. Love. But did you know, viewer, there are 2 more Fred movies?
Mark, no, I totally didn't know this information beforehand. This totally isn't readily available.
Oh yeah, Dumbsville. That's right. You really want to see just how bad the first movie could have been? Well, let's just jump right into the 2011 film Fred 2. Night of the Living Fred.
That title is fucking stupid.
Sadly, this one didn't premiere in theaters. We would only get the chance to witness Fred 2 on the small screen. This is a Halloween movie that revolves around Fred thinking that his new music teacher, Mr. Devlin, is a vampire, and we see his many escapades in trying to prove himself right. Right off the bat, you can tell the immediate problems with Fred in this.
Hey, it's Fred! My life is a horror movie! It's so scary! I'm so scared!
We're only at the 2nd film, and Lucas is already way too old to be playing the part of Fred. Back on his YouTube videos, he was able to just speed up the clip to make his voice sound squeaky, but since that would be impossible to coordinate with other actors, they had to make the controversial decision that Fred connoisseurs such as myself are still debating to this day, and that is the bold choice of pitch-shifting Fred's voice instead. It was different, sure, but in the first movie I still think it worked rather well. I mean, when he screams, you know, you can really feel that, by gosh. Right in your eardrums as they start to bleed, but you know, bleed in a good way.
What do you mean in a good way? That's like a medical emergency.
But in Fred 2, he's clearly hit puberty now, so his voice just consistently sounds off. It's awful.
Why am I even in this dumb video if you're just gonna interrupt everything I say?
So yeah, right off the bat, Fred has already been made 10 times more insufferable than in the first film, if that were even possible. I'm not letting you talk again until you read the line.
Christ, fine. Wow, Mark. After watching this video, everyone should go and check out your Sonic channel that definitely isn't yours, where they can watch videos just like this, only about Sonic the Hedgehog, that doesn't even correlate with Fred.
So around the time that this movie was airing, Fred also received his very own TV show on Nick called Fred the Show. And with the first film being in production before the series, it meant a lot of stuff was bound to change. The first movie definitely feels like it's based on the YouTube videos, but the second one feels more like it's based off Fred the Show, with the same schools in that series and the same actors, although there is some carryover from the first. Not one of those carryovers was Judy, Fred's main love interest, who was so ashamed of being in the first film that her managers refused to let her do anymore, which I honestly don't blame him for.
Have you ever wondered why Pixie was only in the first Fred movie? Her management wouldn't let her do the other ones.
Like I said before, this movie, like the first, features a quite simple story, mostly just as an excuse to have Fred go between random comedic set pieces. However, this time instead of an across-the-street trip, Fred believes that his new music teacher is a vampire and must go sleuthing around to get evidence of this. He is. Spoilers, I guess. It's honestly kind of a cruel movie, but in a bad way. See, the first Fred movie was also cruel, but it was mostly directed towards Fred. Nobody likes him. So when he does something dumb or crazy and gets his comeuppance, I find it genuinely funny because it's deserved. But here Fred basically destroys a man's life and devotes all his time into trying to prove he's a child murderer just because he replaced Fred's old music teacher and didn't think he was all that great at piano. That's all. It does this one thing that I really hate about these mystery stories, where Mr. Devlin acts really ominous and his tone is always so antagonistic, leading you to believe he's a vampire if you're a simpleton. But the second the audience finds out he's not such a bad guy, his attitude completely shifts, and he acts entirely differently now because the audience is supposed to like him. That's not even a Fred problem, that's just an issue with a lot of these twist villain stories. But again, no, Fred just completely ruins his life and makes everyone think he's a freak by filming the insides of his home without any consent, and then acts surprised when people start to actually believe him. Like suddenly they're the crazy one for thinking it's real. I think an issue is that for as simple as the story is, the movie is surprisingly bloated. Like, I think back to the first one and it is so incredibly basic, in a way that makes it succeed in my books. Think about all the main characters that Fred interacts with in that one. It's just Kevin, his mum, Judy, and Bertha. And most of the time when they talk, it's only a couple lines. Like, for a majority of the film, Fred is a solo protagonist. The other characters are used as set pieces, simple foils to get in Fred's way. Like, the structure of the film is basically Fred is by himself and has this weird deluded fantasy about how he thinks things are gonna go exactly the way he wants them to, then he immediately messes it up and faces the consequences. The movie is basically that for 80 minutes. But Fred 2's is only a little bit more complicated, and it somehow causes the whole thing to fall apart. Fred still has those deluded fantasies and messes stuff up, but it's treated as a regular occurrence here. There's a scene where he imagines the music teacher turning into a fly and sucking his blood, and he just wakes back up again on the floor of the school and everyone just acts like nothing happened.
Ready to go to class? That's a good suggestion.
You're not gonna do anything about that, Bertha? Wait a second. You're not Bertha, you're just Cheapy McCheapskate. Yeah, so Jeanette McCurdy was apparently too busy to reprise her role as Bertha for these next two movies, and in Fred the Show. So they had to get Daniela Monet to replace her, who is just an infinitely worse actress. They should have just cut her out entirely like Judy. I mean, they already introduced another girl here who's also weird and into Fred, Kevin's sister, who they want to create some sort of love triangle around with, but who in their right mind would ever be interested in being friends with Fred, never mind dating him? See what I mean about him just no longer being a weird friendless loser anymore? They tone it down slightly enough to make it so he can socialize with other characters, but not enough to the point where it makes him feel natural and that he can fit in with them, which ruins what I liked most about the first Fred movie, Fred's insanity. But it doesn't go far enough in the other direction so that it makes this one make sense. It's so bizarre what they ended up with that it's hard to describe. And that's not to say there aren't moments of enjoyment in this movie, believe you me, there are fun times to be had. But they're always the moments that remind me of how he acted in the first film. Like there's this one part where Fred is planning to break into the school's piano recital and shoot everyone with garlic sauce to reveal the vampires as to who they really are.
These people will not be your minions!
Fred?
So he waltzes on in and shoots everyone up, and it's revealed that they actually are vampires. Fred saves the day, yada yada yada. So of course that's just his fantasy sequence. But then we see how it actually goes, and he basically shoots up the skull with his water gun, with everyone screaming and thinking he's a freak, which is hilarious. But the only bad part here is that by the next scene, Fred just comes back into school like nothing happened. Pretty sure he would have gotten suspended after all that, but nope, all that happens is Kevin makes fun of him for a second. And might I say, Kevin is consistently the best thing about these movies. This movie shimmers when it wears its stereotypes on its sleeve. Like, Kevin is such a funny jock stereotype to me, because I can't tell if him being generic is intentional or not. On one end you have parts where he's wearing a hat with the letter K on it, and a shirt that just says me, which makes it seem like it were intentional. But then I remember it's Fred 2 Night of the Living Fred, and I doubt the writer gave that much of a shit about this. But for every funny part like this, there's 20 awful drawn out parts like Fred cooking a sock. Fred, you're not supposed to do that, you idiot. Overall, this movie is really bad. If someone who likes Fred 1 tells you this movie sucks, then you know it sucks hard. They somehow made the characters worse, the conflict's completely pointless, and I didn't even mention it, but the editing is so bizarre with some of the choices they make.
I mean, I need a woman who's going to challenge me a little more.
Like what the hell was with that pause there?
Wow, Mark, I didn't even watch the movie. I'm just reading lines off the script here, but that was terrible. Boy, have I sure learned my lesson.
Oh, Dumbsville, you silly fucking idiot. We're not done yet. Now we gotta watch Fred 3, Camp Fred.
Well, Mark, I mean, I already...
We're watching Fred 3, goddammit, so sit down and shut up. Releasing in 2012, Fred 3, Camp Fred was the third and final Fred movie to be made. I assume due to low ratings. Even for the time. The other two Fred movies did extremely well, with the first having 7.5 million people watching it, and the second one around 6, with this one sadly only having around 3. But didn't the people want to know how this thrilling trilogy ends? This one starts in the most obnoxious way, with a massive, within their budget, musical number about Fred announcing the beginning of summer. I love it because they're trying to establish this school we know next to nothing about, only to ditch it and never go back there in the next scene. I don't understand it at all. These actors should not be put anywhere near a classroom. Just look at Kevin's actor, who at this point in time was... Let me just, Oh, he was only 22, but like, okay, that's not so bad, but like, he still doesn't look like he belongs. So the plot of this masterpiece is that Fred is all excited to go away to summer camp at this really prestigious place, but his mom could only afford to send him to Camp I Want a PP. They think this is a really funny name, by the way. Just be prepared to hear it a lot. At this point, the film literally just hits a brick wall and they have no idea what they want to do for the rest of it. There is no plot to speak of. They just keep jumping between different B stories until the movie ends. For a while, it's like a mystery movie where Fred wants to find out why all the kids are getting sick and is worried the camp is killing them. So he wanders around having this adventure for a while, but when he realizes nothing is wrong and the writers realize they have 40 minutes of the film left to write, it just turns into one of those generic summer camp game things against their rival camp, with a bunch of antagonists we've never seen before, and Kevin, who basically disappeared for half the film, who they really want to amp up as this, like, evil threat. Like, he was never evil before, he was just a dumb jock. Why are you ruining the classic character of Kevin like this? They just waste so much time setting up the camp, expecting you to care, or at least go, wow, how weird is that? Again, it's that problem with the second one, except turned up to 100, where for some goddamn reason in this goddamned Fred movie, they want you to treat Fred as the straight man. What? The entire crux of the comedy relies on Fred seeing something weird in camp and being creeped out by it or disgusted. It just simply doesn't work. You're taking a weird character and putting him in a weird setting. How do you not realize the issue there? Fred has evolved too much. They're turning him into too much of a character here. In the first movie, he was just a psycho. He spoke gibberish half the time.
Mom, she's my girlfriend! Judy.
But they really want to sell him as the protagonist here. They desperately want you to like him and to wish that he gets home. But I do not give a shit because this is Fred 3 Camp fucking Fred! John Cena hops out of a fridge. That's the best moment. Yes, I'm seriously trying to analyze Fred 3. Fight me. This movie is just painful to watch. In the first two, there were at least a couple shining moments of creativity, but this is just the most cookie-cutter Nickelodeon sitcom made-for-TV movie there ever dang was. Fred shouldn't have been playing Fred at this point, he's way too old here. Not only has he grown like 3 foot, but his voice, Jesus Christ, his voice.
PPS. Catching a bird is way harder than I thought it'd be. So I'm just gonna send it via slingshotted mouse instead.
He just cannot do it anymore, plain and simple. It sounds like it's taking such a strain on him to do, and he barely even has to do any work since it's all done in post. But when he tries to do the iconic Fred scream, you can feel his vocal cords being shattered. It's hard to listen to. They like sit him down with teenagers and expect me to believe they're the same age. And speaking of his friends, Fred makes a bunch of new friends at this summer camp, and they're all the most basic stereotypes you can imagine. We have characters like the token black kid who likes to dig holes. I wonder if that'll come into play later. The girl who's always eating. Wow. I wonder if she's gonna eat later. And of course, the fat kid who never speaks. Do you think he's gonna speak later? The only character who's worth talking about, again, rather than John Cena, is Kevin. This guy cares way too much about giving a good performance, which is weird because according to Lucas, during the filming of the first Fred movie, the actor for Kevin walked up to him and said he was only doing the film because his manager told him to. I mean, hell, props to him for trying, clearly no one else was. Bertha is in it for just one scene of the film and then disappears. John Cena is in it for one scene and then disappears. And despite only being in a small handful of scenes, Fred's mum makes her awful presence known. In the first movie, she was Fred's alcoholic mum. That was it. She liked to take naps and that was all. Then in the second one, they tried giving her more to do as she was in a relationship with a presumed vampire. And of course, to make a good impression on him, she played up that flamboyant energy. It wasn't good, but it made sense at least. But here, she just has that exact same energy for no reason and it makes her so insufferable. She says every line like this. And it's so annoying. If she were in the movie more, I'd say she's worse than Fred. Now saying all that, was there anything I actually liked about Fred 3 Camp Fred? I thought this joke was funny. I laughed really hard when Kevin showed up with a group of other kids and one of them was like a 50-year-old man, but that clearly wasn't intentional. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Come on, you guys aren't even gonna laugh at a burp. It's the second funniest sound the human body can make.
That was the writer of Fred 3. In the end, I'm glad I decided to watch these movies again and properly discuss them, because without a doubt, it showed me just why I like the original Fred movie so much. Again, I must make it clear that it is not a good movie, but I like it. And the reason I like it so much are the exact same reasons why I dislike these other two. Although for some reason I think people see all these films as being of similar quality. So next time you see someone say that, link them this video. Or just call them an idiot, I don't care. Now all that's left to spread the word of Fred some more is talk about Fred the Show and Marvin. But that's a story for another day. So Dumbsville, can you finally see the light now?
Wow, Mark, you are totally right. Now that you have shown me all of these movies, I take back everything I said about it in my dog-ass, garbage, bad, stupid, lame, dumb video, and acknowledge that I, Dumbsville, a very bad YouTuber, can now acknowledge Fred the movie as a postmodern Scorsesean flawless work of art that truly deserves a spot in the Criterion Collection. Mark, I'm not fucking reading.
Too late! Mark wins again! I'm doing you proud, Lucas. I'm doing you proud.